This episode is sponsored in part by PTZ Optics. Why hire a camera operator when the control is in your hands? Visit ptzoptics.com for more information. And by NewTek, makers of the TriCaster TC1. Stun your viewers, not your accountant. Visit newtek.com for more information.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 12 of Game Time. We're here. We have a whole host of people to talk to have fun with, and I want to take this opportunity to say hi to Glenn. Glenn, you've never been so quiet in your life. Yeah, he's okay.
He's very quiet.
He's very quiet. So that's what we've got with Glenn tonight. We've also got with us Jade. So you don't have your music this week.
Oh wait, no, I do.
Oh, there you go. She's doing it herself this week, ladies and gentlemen.
She's multi-talented.
Multi-talented. And we also have got Wild Bill in the house.
Hello.
What's going on, guys?
Definitely not.
I guess knee Glenn kept him tied up, huh?
Well, so little disclaimer here. So Glenn decided after last week's show, after knee Glenn was on, that he was going to go all Hollywood on us. So he's out producing a commercial with some video professional, probably paid a buttload of money for it, and for his Build-A-Cade. So Glenn is not with us this week. But I think we can hold down the fort.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, we can hold down the fort.
Sorry, I don't have any of his funny sound effects. I got to make my own.
Make your own. Make it off the...
I heard that Bourbon does a really good job of making sound effects.
Not those kind of sound effects. Oh, wait. You said bourbon.
We'll find out later.
You said bourbon, not beans, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's. I want to mention something really quick here. So, Angel's in the chat room. I want to say hi. What's up, Angel? And for a lot of you guys, he sent me a message, and he said that he is doing insert replacement marquees for the Cavs: Big Blue, Terminator 2, Defender, Mortal Kombat 2, and Mortal Kombat 30. For those of you that are modifying your cabinets, or if Arcade 1-Up actually does one. All the new cabinets that have the slide-in plexi, you can get them from Angel, and it's also on reverse printed material. I have one of his Terminator 2 ones, and it looks really nice, the reverse printed. So hit Angel up. He's in the chat room there, I believe. Jade, you have one of the reverse printed marquees, correct?
Yeah, I was just going to say, he did my custom Capcom logo for my Big Blue. And I mean, it's the coolest, probably one of the coolest looking marquees in the arcade room. So he does good work. It's very nice stuff.
Well, and he's a big supporter of the community here, so we love working with Angel. I have a lot of marquees and stuff from him, and Bill, you need to get you a marquee from Angel to put on your, what is it, Tempest back there you have, or?
Yeah, I may have to do it, especially for Tempest.
Well, the cool thing is that he does the slide-in ones with that.
The reverse printing, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they just look really good with a backlight, because like the Capcom one has a lot of blacks in it, and the light that I put in there is fairly bright. So, but it looks really good. Like it doesn't look washed out or anything. So.
Yeah, so we appreciate it. We wanted to throw that out there to let you guys know. Let's get into some of this news here before we get to our main event topic. Here, Bill, you kind of sent this to us earlier this week about Analogue, and the 16-bit folks are rejoicing because they're making one of the final batches of the SNES and Genesis consoles. I'll be the first to admit, I have not seen this before.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people know Analogue right now from the Pocket. That's probably their biggest seller right now. So which is a great little device. I need to look into getting one. It's so hard to get them sometimes, but it's really cool because you can play Game Boy, GBA.
And you buy the different inserts for it to switch it around.
Yep. And they're actually coming. One of the announcements they had in this is they're coming out with inserts that let you play TurboGrafx 16, Neo Geo Pocket, and Lynx.
Really?
Yeah.
On it, yeah.
I had a pre-order for a Wave 1 Pocket Analog, and I had to cancel it because I was moving and I'm sad I did that.
Yeah. But these are some of the first things that they had come out with way before the Pocket, and this is their version of an SNES and a Genesis console. They got one of each. And they've been out of production for a while, so I think people are going to be really excited about the fact that they're bringing these back. And what's cool about these is that they're not emulator machines. They actually use FPGA chips so that they play the games natively in them. So, if you're one of these guys, girls that has a lot of, these old games around and you like playing these old games, getting something like this is really cool because, number one, it's a newer machine, so you're not, worried about it, playing your games in a 30-year-old console that's potentially going to break down. And they have some nice amenities in them. They've got HDMI out. You can plug them into a brand new TV. You're not worried about trying to track down a CRT or get a converter to convert them to play on your newer TVs. They've got, I think they have Bluetooth in them. I know they work with wireless controllers. So you can get like the 8-bit controllers to play them with. So they're actually neat looking machines. The only downside to this is they are going to be a limited run, and I don't think they're actually going to ship until like this time next year.
Oh, really? Did you get a price on it? I didn't really get a chance to read the article.
$200. They're $199 each.
The original Super Nintendo price.
Yeah.
But it might be worth it if you want to put your Super Nintendo on the shelf and save it. And I don't know how long you're going to save it, but yeah. I mean,
well, we've talked about that before. The problem with playing with these older consoles is, you run the risk that if they're going to stop working and you're not going to be able to get them repaired, or at least not easily. You get something like this, you got a little more,
exactly,
better chance that it's going to last you longer.
So before we get to the next segment really quick, we have a bit of AtGames news that's fresh and hot off the presses.
AtGames news and notes.
So AtGames put out some information today that if you were on the list or you pre-ordered, you put your deposit down for one of those the mini pinball machines, check your email inboxes because you probably are going to be getting an order form. I know some of the folks on the Facebook group, guys I have seen, are getting their pinballs and ordering them. They're getting the ability to order them, that they'll be here in time for Christmas. So that's huge. There's going to be some competitions going on with pinball. I know Michael B's doing a competition right now for the BitPixel LCD. So you can, for the artwork and such, so Michael's got a video on that. There's also going to be firmware coming up here. It's a universal firmware for all the machines. That's going to be coming up, I believe it's October 26th. So you want to definitely watch for that to drop. But that's coming later on this month. So I'm kind of excited about it because we really haven't had a lot of AtGames to talk about. But they dropped the ball. They dropped the bomb.
Does that mean you're going to lose games on your system again?
Well, we're hoping that it fixes that, right? We hope there's some other little features like lobbies coming to the firmware for the pinball. So, I mean, isn't that something people were asking Arcade 1-Up to do, was lobbies? I don't know. I think that was something that somebody asked.
Nobody cares
It
about
was
lobbies.
it was like a pipe dream.
Yeah. So with the AtGames, if you guys want lobbies, well, they're doing it. So I don't know why Arcade 1-Up can't do it if AtGames is doing it.
They can do it, but let's not open that can of worms.
I want to open that can of worms. I got to get some energy tonight. Listen, it's been a long day. I don't normally have to code. I get done with work, and I had to code trying to fix some websites.
Wait. Let me do this here.
Okay. Are you going to play a sad violin?
No.
Or sad?
Hi,
Okay.
I'm Arcade One Up. I make arcade machines. But sometimes I make lobbies, sometimes I don't. But we can do it. It's just that we don't want to pay Code Mystics because we're too cheap to.
Oh, that's probably it. We got a super chat here from Zohar, even though he says it's not Zohar. His username is definitely not Zohar, but it definitely is Zohar. I love everyone. This is one of my favorite shows. I love the panel. Very smart and creative hosts. We appreciate it, Zohar.
Thank you, not Zohar.
Yeah, that's very nice of you to say, not Zohar.
Not Zohar.
Definitely.
But yeah, so I think a lot of people want these rooms, and At Games is giving it to them. The lobbies, they're getting them out there, and I know on the Legends Ultimate, you have voice chat and everything like that. So it's just, I think it's a matter of time that Arcade 1-Up needs to do that. So, yes. And
do you have like a graphic of like a tumbleweed rolling out in the middle of the desert?
No, I
would go perfectly with.
I probably should have, but I do have a graphic for some Arcade 1-Up news.
Arcade 1-Up. News and notes.
So any of you guys that have been paying attention to a lot of the forums, a lot of the Reddit articles, a lot of the Facebook groups might have found that some of the folks that have pre-ordered and received their Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Jade's favorite subject right now, have seen that some of their boards are dying. They're turning black. They're rebooting automatically. Volume sliders are going down. Like, Jade, you first reported that when you first opened it up. You're like, wait, I didn't touch anything, and the volume slider's going down. And this is what we hear from Arcade 1-Up. I don't have that tumbleweed graphic. We just have to be quiet on that spot. So I don't know what's going on here. It's making me a little nervous. Bill, I want to start with you. You still haven't gotten your Marvel vs. Capcom 2, have you?
No, I do have it.
Does it work?
It's sitting in a box right now.
He's not excited enough to put it together.
Apparently, he's not excited enough. That doesn't help.
No, I am. It's actually going together this week. I got it last weekend, and it's just been a busy week. I'm actually going to be moving this little guy out of the way to put MVC2 there because it's the only room I have right now.
And then where are you putting Tempest at?
It's just going to go in. I have a little storage room over here. It's just going to go in there for now. I may or may not plug it in for the time being. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to set it up this weekend. I'm going to try it out. So I am looking forward to playing it. But yeah, this doesn't make me feel all warm and tingly inside.
Well, Bill, something to think about. And because I'm going to ask Jade the same thing. You have 30 days to return that. Time's already ticking.
Yeah.
Doug, our former co-host of the Retro Buzz, he put out a video. He bought with his own money. He bought Marvel vs. Capcom 2, did a review, and he said, listen, Arcade 1-Up, if you do not have online gameplay in 28 days, I'm packing this up, and I'm sending it back. So, Bill, I want you to think about that. Jade, you have yours. You've had yours for 2 weeks. And you wanted online play. If it's not there in 2 weeks.
I thought it was a cool bonus. But I did also notice that Glenn just seems to he's become adept at texting with his hands tied behind his back. Did you see that?
No, he's playing with Big Bird. He's over here with Big Bird and Monster. I'll get those photos pulled up here in a second. But are you going to get rid of yours in 2 weeks, or are you going to be okay with waiting it out? And if it takes 3 months, 4 months, a year?
Well, I think I went into it not expecting. I went into it with like the best hopes, but then not expecting it to. Like, I was expecting problems. Let me just put it that way. And I tried to like be kind of, positive about it and everything, but it is what it is, and there's people who it just doesn't seem to bother for whatever reason. And, it bothers me, and I know it bothers other people. And it's like that whole thing of, you buy a product for $600. I don't care if it's a downscaled arcade or whatever. Like, this is licensed crap that you're buying. It's literally licensed by, Arcade 1-Up and these other companies. So it's a representation of, not only those companies, but the people who love these things. And so to me, it's a collector's thing. And I went into it knowing that it was going to be problematic. So I'm keeping it, but that doesn't mean that, I don't know, it might just be what I keep purely for the fact of, collecting. And that's it.
I'm personally, I don't care about the online stuff. I probably won't play online. So for me, it's not a deal breaker. And I'm not getting mine until December. So hopefully they'll have it. But Bill, is it a deal breaker for you if they don't get online? Are you just going to keep it in that box and wait? Or are you going to keep it?
I'm going to keep it. And similar to Jay, this is something that I have wanted since I started looking into Arcade 1-Up. I liked that they had the Marvel superheroes, the X-Men vs. Street Fighter, those cabs. And I kept saying, I'd love for them to put one together that's got, all those games on it instead of the two. And on the fact that it had Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on it was going to be a bonus. So I'm more concerned about the other little bugs and glitches in it getting fixed. The
volume
audio
sliders going
stutters,
down.
the volume slider, the stuttering that happens from time to time.
The latency.
I'm much more concerned about that getting fixed than the online play. Because all the other games have online play other than Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I'm fairly certain they're going to have online for Marvel vs. Capcom 2 eventually.
See,
is it going to be beyond the 30
about...
days? Maybe. And that doesn't really bother me. See, my daughter was excited for me to get this one. So I know we're going to play it together more so than I'm probably going to play online. So
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, this is gonna stay for sure, because this is one I'm a huge comic geek. I love Marvel comics, so having this was going to be, for that alone, is worth the price.
It's missing Punisher, Jason says. Yeah,
and he's absolutely right. And
I have that on.
You're unfortunately getting ahead of my review when it comes out, because that is definitely one of the things I'm going to mention, is that the game list is almost perfect. If it had Punisher, it would be perfect.
So Glenn sent us this, and we can kind of get back to that. Glenn sent us this is why he's not here. He's hanging out with Big Bird and Monster from Monsters Inc. Like really? You would rather hang out with Big Bird and the monster from Monsters Inc. than to be here.
Is he like sticking his finger up Big Bird's butt?
I don't know what he's doing.
Big Bird's face. He's like, oh.
Like, I don't understand I don't understand why he decided to leave us for Big Bird.
For Big Bird.
Is Big Bird that much more exciting? I mean, that's the story of this day, right? One thing after the other. So you were saying about that Marvel vs. Capcom 2. You noticed some of the stuff too that Doug brought up in his video. Mm-hmm. A lot of people aren't happy about it. And here's the thing: the three of us, we bought all our cabinets. Doug bought that cabinet. So you kind of have to say, we're calling it right down the middle. We're calling it as we see it. I haven't even had hands on with this thing yet. Yeah, so I'm keeping some things to myself. Big Reese's in the chat here. I don't know if he's still in here. Have you experienced the volume slider going down automatically like Jade and Doug have seen? It just goes down for no reason.
Yeah, I think it's like
or the rebooting.
I think it's something to do with like I don't know, there's some sort of like input crossover or something, because it's like when I'm doing certain things is when it happens, and it's always, hitting certain buttons a certain way or something. But I always notice that it happens like a certain way, kind of. So I feel like it has something to do with like input crossovers, or maybe it's a software thing. I don't know. I really don't. But I mean, it was to the point where I mean, I felt like I had to put out a review video just to like cover all of the things that people are experiencing and talking about in whole, including my own experiences, which align with 90% of that, because it's like that's what everybody was expecting it to be, you know, a polished product because of what it is and the crowd that it appeals to. And I think that that's where the disappointment really comes in. It's not just that it doesn't have online. It's a combination of all these other stupid little tiny things that are pissing people off. That's why I returned my Shinku cab, for those same reasons, you know. And a lot of people are like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it, or mine doesn't do that. I'm like, no, the hell it doesn't. Well, they all do. It's just that some people don't have that. They don't care.
Well, and I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about Rexer. Rexer made a video, him and Kev Gret. But there was one thing that Rexer said in that video I thought was genuine, and I thought you could actually take this for what he said. He said that you think Arcade 1-Up would have rolled out the red carpet with this product and made this. This should have been the best cabinet that they have put forth because of the demand for this cabinet. And they didn't do it. And that's a fail in his eyes. He said there's other cabinets that have come out that are in better shape than this. And I think the community, the chat room here would agree they should have held it. They should have polished it. Even if it meant releasing it in 2023, that's what they should have done, because I think there's a lot of hardcore fans that are going to be truly, truly upset if they don't get the online play, if they do not get quick updates to the fixes that reviewers are finding. And I'm going to ask the question, where is the quality assurance on this? You have a guy that is a fighting champion for these fighting games that should have seen the latency that Doug showed, that Jade showed, that B. Kong showed, that a bunch of people have shown. Where was this? That's my question.
Yeah, I think that there's maybe like relationships that are a little bit too close. Maybe people don't want to step on each other's toes. And, you know, even if you take that variable out of it, it's like, it just makes me feel like you can't really trust, you know, anyone when it comes to these kind of products, because it can be put out there. So I don't know. I just feel like it's been one thing after another, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for me was like the icing on the cake. And I'm just, you know, it's like, I don't think I would ever personally, I don't think I would ever be able to trust one of their products again, or even have faith that it's going to be released, you know, have a good release and work well.
I think I'm with Bill on this, because we don't do hardcore gaming here with these arcades. It's more of a nostalgic thing. I think, Bill, what you said with your daughter playing it with you, she was excited for you to get it. Oh, there we go. Look, it even worked.
Oh, it worked. That looks much better.
Davila Sinstra, and that's over. I hope I pronounced that right. I think that's over on Twitch. Thank you for the subscription. Really appreciate that. Or if that was on YouTube, wherever you subscribe, because I know you can subscribe on both. We appreciate it. For me, it's nostalgia. For me, having these games here, having the ability to play them with my friends is key. And I want to show you guys something here, because we want to keep this positive. I want to start a new segment called Game Night, and I want you, the community, to get involved with this. I want you to send me videos of Game Night. It could be just 30 seconds. You can have your cell phone up, turn it sideways, just shoot the video. It could be raw. You could be shaking it. We want to show everybody. Just send me a link. You can send me an email or DM me a Dropbox link on Twitter, on Facebook. I mean, I'm easy to get a hold of. And I want to showcase this when you have people over and they're playing your arcades in your game room. Show it off, because I think this speaks volumes to why we're all buying this stuff. So there you guys can see, like, nobody was saying the emulation was bad, the delays were bad, and I was telling the guys here, I said, you know, take notice of what game she was playing on Big Blue, the one girl, and she was playing Puzzle Fighter. She sat there and played that for 4 hours, and I'm not kidding you. And obviously, because I was videoing this, you didn't get to see, but me and the guy that was playing Galaga at the end, him and I played Simpsons Bowling. That's like the game now that him and I play every. We try to see how many 300 games that we can do, and we'll go neck and neck, in one night, right? We've played that for 3 hours. That has been the go-to, and as you can see, my son and other people, they play the Terminator 2 cabinet a lot. I mean, not one person has like come up and said, "Man, these are cheap guns on Terminator 2." Or now I do have Glenn's his spinner or his trackball now in The Simpsons, so it does roll so much nicer. But I think we get to be these home arcade snobs, right? Like, it has to be this way, and the emulation is bad on this, and this is terrible, and the arcade one-up pinball is so blurry. Not one person said that. Not one person said this is a BOE monitor. And that Galaga, I forget what monitor's in it, but it's awful. It's not even a BOE, I don't think, in the original Galaga.
Oh, that's one of the first gens, right?
First gens. And
yeah.
my PCB died. It was, John D sent me another one. Oh, gosh, it had to have been like 8 months ago. And my buddy, the guy that was playing it, has the highest score out of anybody that's ever played it in here. And I gave him the broken PCB and I wrote his score on it so he could keep it.
Trophy.
Yeah, but I got one from Arcade 1-Up, and that was back when their customer service was terrible, and John D pushed it through so that I could get it. And it was like, hey, I haven't heard anything from support. It's been 3 weeks. What's going on? That was back when he was heavily active in the community. So the gun sound, Dr. Freeman, he says that gun sound is annoying. My son loves that sound on the
You can turn it
Terminator.
off.
You can. He loves the sound of it. I'm like, turn that thing on. You know, and I honestly, I think Marvel vs. Capcom 2, The Machine, I love Children of the Atom.
Yep.
I love beat 'em ups like that. So I think that's going to have the same effect, like you said, Bill, the nostalgic effect that, you know, we're all missing. So I want you guys, if you have people over, send me a video. We'll showcase it on the show here. I don't care if your game room has 3 arcades in it. I don't care if it has 1. You know what? You can have just as much fun. Send it in. We want to see it and see how much fun you're having, because honestly, that's the reason why we get all this stuff, and that's why Jade does what Jade does.
What do I do?
I don't know. It just sounded right, so I just went with it. You were just sitting there all serious, so I was trying to catch you off guard. Bill, I mean, you're building a game room. That's your hopes and dreams, right? To have people over, to be able to have fun, right?
Exactly.
So
slow process, but it'll get there.
I have a box back here. You want to know something funny? Like when we go to the next video, I can always pick it up. I have this box. It's an old USPS box. It's about yay by yay of extra joysticks, extra balls, extra buttons, encoder boards,
precise measurements.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, because I've had to replace so many buttons and so many joysticks on these things, It's not even funny. Because I mean that's just how it is, right? That's one of the reasons, Jade, we talked about. I don't upgrade them the first thing that comes out, because when the kids come over and they start beating on them, right?
Yeah.
That's when I have to fix them. But I've put in at least half the buttons in just about every one of the Gen ones because they just tanked. Let's see. Roger Smith says, I have a 6-lane slot card track. Does that count? Absolutely. Send us a video of kids playing it. We want to see it. That's part of your game room. Does it have to be just arcade? No, your game room. If you got pool tables, air hockey, if it's got slot machines. I mean, I almost bought a slot machine. I got a good deal on it at the one. It's like $80 for a true Vegas one.
Games.
Do you really? You play slots?
No, a haven of games. That's a game room.
Yeah,
a haven of gaming of any kind.
It could be your console room. You could have a projector screen with console games. I don't care. Send it in. If that's your game room, send it in. We want to see it, and we'll show it on the show here. And hopefully we get enough people sending them in, and we can show it.
But if you really don't like Arcade 1-Up, there's only one other alternative.
We're gonna get to that in a little while. I know. Jade's got some stuff. We're trying to hold it off because she's got the fun segment coming up, and Bill has the major segment that we're going to talk about here. But Music Mike said that's a great concept. I have 11 cabs and enjoy playing them, and the nostalgia that they bring. But nothing brings me more enjoyment than having. Let me pull it up here because the family members and friends over playing. Exactly. Our big shindig, if you want to call it that. Can we say shindig? Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Shindig is New Year's Eve. We have so many people over. The arcade's booming. The other room with the games booming. We have Rock Band set up in the other room. All your motion games on Switch, Wii, all in the other room. So it's nice. You got more room on above the head. Paul Burns wants to know, did I ever get a real pinball table? I don't. My mother-in-law has one. He said,
will you?
Oh, will I get one? I really don't have the room for it. My mother-in-law has 8-ball deluxe, so when I want to play a real one, I go over there. I don't have the room for that or real arcades. I don't live in California where they have sky-high ceilings and stuff. That's a little teaser for you guys for a little later. Yeah, so this is like the old setup. Somebody said something about what did he say? He says, I think your background in tech, communications, and podcasting brings a lot of class to YouTube. I respect you so much for and it got cut off here, how much quality that you bring to YouTube. Sorry. I appreciate that. I got to update this background, though, because this is not it's not the old, the TV image that just keeps looping is not the same, but
that's false advertising.
I know. I just wanted to disclose that, though. I needed to disclose that.
It's a good thing you disclosed it very well.
I'm not sitting right in front of my arcades and such. So, but I think that's what we all. I mean, it's great to criticize, the companies to make a better product. If that's the intention, to make a better product, then by all means, I think we all should be critical of everything. I mean, we're spending good money. And somebody else said it in the chat room that they only spend. They'll only buy these arcades at 50%. Jade made me buy Marvel vs. Capcom 2 at full price. I never, ever have bought.
Same. I blame her.
This is all her fault. Arcade 1-Up should be giving her commission because of this.
Well, I just threw up
she made me give into FOMO.
It's all her fault. I'm just saying. That's the truth. That's why we have her in the middle.
Dreamcast Kyle, thank you.
No, what's he saying? Is he buttering you up now too?
No, he said congrats on Big Red Neo Geo.
Oh yeah, he's giving it away. Jeez. She had to sneak that out. Yeah.
No spoilers.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that here in a little bit. FOMO. That's right. I had it in my cart 15 times. 16, and then she called me. This is how bad she wanted me to get it. She called or texted me at 2:30 a.m. my time, to make sure that I saw that pre-orders went up, and I sat there, and the stupid thing, She's like, well, did you buy it? I'm like, no, I just left it in my cart. She's like, it's sold out now. I'm like, well, so.
No, because let me do my impression of Steven.
Go ahead.
Here we go.
Make sure you get the whiny voice.
I really want this Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but I just don't know if I have room.
No. That sounds too like cool. You have to do the whine. You gotta be the whiny, more whiny if you're gonna do me.
Okay.
You gotta do more whiny. Right, guys? More whiny.
I'm just so in love with this Marvel vs. Capcom 2, but I don't think I can buy it.
Oh, here we go.
I think I would have to sell my iArcade, and maybe I'll just put it in the other room where I can fit 10 more arcades, and then I'll have room for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. But I'd rather keep it in my cart for the next 10 days.
True story. She's not lying. That's pretty much the conversation. You got to call it as. You know what? I do think I'm getting a cold. Somebody was saying that earlier. I think Paul's saying that here. Yeah, I think I don't have what Michael B has. I don't have the hand, foot, mouth disease that. Although I've put my foot in my mouth so many times throughout this career of YouTube, but I assure you I don't have that. But it could be just it's really cold here. We had snow the other day. In fact, I can show you a picture of that. I'll show you guys that. But let's get to one of the favorite segments here, because I know you guys love to argue with me on this one, and that's okay. Let's look at today's make or break.
Make or break.
Okay, this week's make or break is the Sega Dreamcast. Did Sega make or break this system? This was one of my favorite systems growing up. I remember taking my hard-earned money and saving up and pre-ordering it and ordering the magazine, only to have Sega kill it off in less than a year. What's your thoughts? Did Sega make or break this system?
Ready for it.
We got her! Hi, Randy.
Well, hello.
It's thinking.
All right, guys. You in the chat room, I see a lot of you guys have been posting this in. This was one of my favorite consoles of all times. And I know if Glenn was here, he would agree with me. And Mike, he says they broke it by discontinuing it too soon. When they decided to make software for other consoles, they should have continued to support their own platform for at least another year. I would agree with that. Keep your comments coming. We'll get to that. All right, Jade, make or break.
Well, should I preface it, or should I just give my answer right up front?
No, you can preface it. That's fine.
I mean, first of all, Dreamcast was the sickness, because you were getting this was the console that everybody knew was going to have, it was going to be able to play all these fighting games like Street Fighter 3, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and that a lot of them, including Street Fighter 03 Upper or Sakyo Dojo, if you got the US version, were pretty much direct arcade ports with the console options. That was like the port aspect of it, was that you got the console options or extras with it. But it was pretty much the arcade port, because the Naomi was like the Dreamcast sister system, and there was just a couple tiny things that set those two apart. So it was an arcade-based console, and it had, the PowerVR chipset in it, and had full compatibility with monitors, or VGA output.
Mhm.
And it was just an incredible system. I mean, from the day it came out in '99, I got it right when it came out, and I was just in love with it. And then, they had so many good titles for it as well. Shenmue was like a big one, and of course Shenmue 2 was around the time that it started to kind of die off. But I think that Sega broke the console because they did not continue to support it and use these arcade level platforms that they had. But it's also difficult because at that time the arcade was slowly beginning to change and kind of dwindle, so to speak, but I mean, that was when you were seeing the last of kind of like Tekken Tag.
Well, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was on it.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
But then, like, all those fighting game series like Tekken
Mhm.
and Street Fighter were all going through changes at that time.
Yeah.
And then they kind of slowly started to fizzle out shortly after of the arcade. So anyways, overall though, I would definitely say it was a break. Sega broke it. The console itself was just incredible and still is to this day.
Well, and it was before its time. And so, because
Mhm.
that's what
Yeah.
Bonafide Picker was
But
asking about.
There's two arcade platforms that the Dreamcast is basically built on, or built of, if you will, and
Right.
that's the Atomis Wave and the Naomi.
Naomi.
And Model 3, it wasn't so much. It other than any power interconnections that it had as far as processing power with the Naomi, it could do Model 3, but sadly, I don't think it pulled that off as well as the actual Model 3 itself.
But how many of you guys carried
Yeah.
those
Regar-
memory cards around as like little gigapets in your pocket,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you played the mini games, and you took them to your friend's house with the saved information on it? We all did that, right?
But they
It was like a
have,
Tamagotchi.
this is the last thing I want to say about it. They still, like, to this day, there's still so much support for the console, but you can actually get Atomis Wave games, like the arcade versions, that people have taken the time just to do the port so that it can play on the Dreamcast. So like Samurai Showdown 6, for example,
Mhm.
really, really cool Atomis Wave game. But anyways, just a little tidbit.
Glenn,
Now that's
you've been
that-
replaced. No, I'm just kidding.
No, well, that's interesting, and that actually brings up, and I'll get to the make or break, but that actually brings up a whole other discussion, because you're talking about how it was an arcade-based console, but at the same time, arcades were beginning to change and dwindle. So, did arcades like start to go out of fashion because you could basically play the arcade game in your home?
Yes,
So
100%.
I definitely think that impacted it.
That was the goal of Sega.
Which then changed the console, because why emulate an arcade when there's no arcades around anymore? It's a whole
Right.
almost chicken and egg thing, which is weird. Now, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, then you had PlayStation 2, and like the home port of Tekken Tag was like incredible compared to the arcade version. And so there was
there
other
was so much more
aspects
in it.
like that too, right? Like and back then people weren't like, oh my God, they didn't port this perfectly to the console. They're like, Jesus, this looks 10 times better than the arcade. This is amazing, So that was another aspect of it too that I think kind of started to break it
Oh,
down.
absolutely. Yeah. Now, and back to your point about make or break, I do think Sega, that ultimately not only did Sega break Dreamcast, but Dreamcast broke Sega,
Ooh.
because it
Ooh,
was it was really the last console that they came out with. And then they started making games. I think somebody actually brought this up too. After this, they just started to port their games over to other consoles. They didn't even
Yeah.
bother trying to compete anymore.
Right.
So it went both ways. And now, again, the funny thing, what I didn't own a Dreamcast. I always liked Sony. I had a PS2. I loved PlayStation. But one of the interesting things I always thought about Dreamcast, and Jade, you brought this up with the VJ out. Back in the late 90s, I would go to a lot of computer shows. I was very heavy into computers, building my own computers, upgrading them, all that kind of stuff. I would go to computer shows all the time. And every single computer show I went to had a Dreamcast set up and plugged into 10 monitors, and playing Soul Calibur. To show off mostly to show off the quality of the monitors they were selling, but they were using Dreamcasts to do it.
Yeah.
That's how incredible the look of that machine was, is that they were using it to sell monitors.
It really was. And I see a comment here that says Soul Edge to Soul Calibur. But so I don't know if he meant Soul Calibur arcade version versus Dreamcast version. Because that was another one, which is a good example of where Namco took something that, it looked nice in the arcade, but then when you saw it on Dreamcast, it was just like, like mind-blowingly better. But yeah, I mean, the output on that console and the Power VR chipset at that time was just incredible. And plus, they were running it on the Windows CE platform, right?
That's why I was saying before that Glenn was replaced, because you have all the history down to a T with the technical specs. Yeah. So, Glenn, you got to step up your game. You got to get past the retro stuff. I'm just kidding. I figured this was going to spark a lot of interest because, we do a lot of home arcade. But I remember the reason I wanted to buy the Dreamcast, besides Sega being leap years ahead of everybody else at the time, was to have home arcade, have the games at home. There was no arcade one-up then. Right. So the only way I could get that arcade experience at home was to buy a Dreamcast. It had the best Sonic game ever. Soul Calibur was that was the fighting game until they came out with, obviously, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on there. But there's Crazy Taxi. To this day, how many guys would kill for a Crazy Taxi arcade one-up game?
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody in here, if they made a Crazy Taxi game, they would be all over it. We would have another pre-order debacle like we have right now. Yeah. It would be bigger than Blitz.
Mm-hmm. Of course, they couldn't get the music right, but that's a whole nother topic.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. I think they had so many, can we say bangers? Isn't that what everybody's using now? Banger titles?
Yeah.
Right? Is that what it was? They had so many banger titles on it, it was not even funny.
Yeah. Legitimately, I mean, you're not talking
Power Stone was another big one.
Power Stone,
Power Stone 1 and 2. I mean, and these things were literally, like just straight from the Naomi, and then they basically implemented like console options and extra content. That was back before DLC was a huge thing.
So speaking of home arcade and getting out of the 3/4 scale, Jade, why don't you preface your segment here?
Well, I've been looking around for a long time for some decent deals on, full-size cabs because, I do enjoy a lot of the stuff that Arcade 1-Up has done. I would prefer the real thing. And so it's really been like more of a cost thing, but it seems like this time of year, for some reason, people out here have just been unloading. And so I found this really, really good deal you guys have to see.
Hey, what's up, everyone? If you know me, you know I've been arcade hunting for a while. So here's my newest find that will be joining my collection in the next couple days. Let's check it out. So I've been looking for a Neo Geo Big Red, and I just happened to run into this as well. So I found these on OfferUp, and I messaged the guy and said, hey, would you sell me both of these for a discounted price? And he said, sure. So of course I was super stoked, and I went over to take a look at these things and see, if there was any issues. And surprisingly, there's not. So I actually have two of the same racing cabs to choose from with the original hard drive images.
And on top of that, of course, the Big Red with the MVS selector and 4 games included. Now, while these do have a couple small things to fix on them, they are fully operational and playable. Of course, the cosmetic side is not a big deal, and I do have all the stickers for the Neo Geo already. So needless to say, I'm very excited that I get to work on these, and also here's some bonus footage. So is any of this from when like you were a kid, or is most of this stuff that you've like collected later on?
Both.
Okay. The McDonald's, I remember those Transformers. Wow. Wow. So,
Now that you made
so
everybody
yeah.
jealous.
I've been hunting for a while, and I actually thought I was going to get an HS5 Dynamo, which is like the one other one that I would really like to get as like, you know, the real hardware original stuff. But I haven't been able to do that, but I did find these, and I basically contacted the guy and I was just like, hey, I will take both of those off your hands, but can you kind of hook me up? And really nice guy. And I just talked to him about, you know, the condition of them and everything. And so the MVS actually has the 4 slot with 4 games that it comes with. And everything is operational except for a few tiny things. And the monitor needs to be adjusted just a little bit. But it's all fully functional. And then same thing with the racing cab. Everything on it works. The shifter, force feedback, wheel calibration, speakers, everything works. So most of it is aesthetic that I have to fix with them. But let's just say that the deal that I got, you guys, was that I basically got both of these. So the racing cab and the Big Red for less than the cost of a Pro cab.
Wow. That's insane. And you got to play it though, right? You got to actually.
Yeah, I played both of them.
Wow.
I played both of them.
Yeah, you can't beat that. I mean,
No, I was saying before the show, that San Francisco Rush alone should be worth more than that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great pick
so
on that cab.
Jade sends me the pictures or the information or whatever. She goes, guess how much I paid for it? And I told her, and then she goes, yeah, I'm picking them up Saturday. I'm like, so which arcade 1-ups are going out the door? It wasn't like, how did they play? You know, like, I mean, you
sounds like it might be MVC too.
And I said, so what machines are you getting rid of? Because obviously you told us that you had everything that you wanted for your home arcade, and that just went out the window. And I said, don't say that.
So obviously the MVSX is going bye-bye.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And then I think I'm gonna get rid of my Killer Instinct as well. Because
maybe you should sell Steven your MVSX.
No, she's giving it to the guy. I think.
Yeah, it's the cost of shipping would just be like
we already
so.
talked about that. Yeah, I thought about it.
But yeah, so I mean, obviously that's kind of taking the place of the MVSX, and then the racing cab is just kind of an extra addition. So I can move things around a little bit, but I would definitely, if I ever got a Dynamo, I would get rid of MVC2 and just get a Naomi and probably like a Dark Soft kit and just have that set up in the HS5 or a Big Blue, either one of those, a Big Blue or an HS5. And that would be, I'd be good with that. I mean, that would fill in anything I'm moving around right now.
So Paul says everybody's invited to your house for retro gaming on New Year's Eve. Save the date.
That would be so fun.
So, well, that's really cool. I'm glad to see that you were able to get that. So, Bill, let's transition to your segment, which is the marquee title of today. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it before we play the clip?
Okay, so Yeah, so what was it, last week or the week before that, Nintendo put Pilot Wing 64 onto the Nintendo Switch, but they made some adjustments to it. They bumped up the frame rate on it, so it's playing at a full 60 frames per second. They bumped up the resolution. I think they increased some of the textures on it. So they made a few adjustments to it. So basically, it's not the same game, same exact game that it was when it originally released on the N64. So the question is that a good thing?
Let's take a look.
So last month, Nintendo had their latest Nintendo Direct, and during that, they gave us a new roadmap for the latest N64 games that would be coming to the Nintendo Switch Online service over the next several months. Well, now it looks like the first of those has dropped, and this is Pilot Wings 64. Now, what's interesting about this in the run-up to it being released is that people have noticed something a little different with this version compared to the original version as it was released on the N64. And the big thing that people have noticed is the fact that the game does appear to be running much smoother than it did in the past. Now that's because the game has been bumped up to run at 60 frames per second. If you go back to the original Pilot Wings, the menus were running at a smooth 60 frames per second, but when you got into the main game, you were stuck at 30 frames per second. Now, whether or not this means that the game was always capable of 60 frames per second, but the Nintendo 64 hardware couldn't handle it, or whether it was a conscious decision to make the game that way, not really sure. But at any rate, this new version is running at a much higher frame rate, along with being at a higher resolution, and it does look like some of the textures have been enhanced as well. So that begs the question, even though the game does look a lot nicer and probably plays a lot better too because of this, is that what we really want? When companies release these classic games for their systems, do we want them to make these kind of changes? Or would we prefer to play them the way they were played back in the day, warts and all? Join us as we discuss this and let us know in the comments your thoughts. Do you like the fact that they're making changes to these classic games as they release them, or do you want to play them as they were back in the day? So that's the discussion really, is what do you guys think? When they release these older games, would you prefer to play them the way they were originally made, or do you not mind when they make changes and adjustments like this?
And the reason I put Blitz on the title card, if you will, the thumbnail for this is that was something that everybody screamed about because of Blitz Legends, right? They changed so much of the game that they didn't feel that it was true to the original title, even though Arcade Went Up tried to mask it by saying, well, this is a different game and we had to do different things with it. Like even to things like the Ninja Turtles game where they changed the music to it. It's not the original music, so people had a problem with it. I don't know. Let's start with Bill. You brought the topic up. Does it bother you if they do that stuff?
And that's the thing. It actually, I would say it depends on what the change is. Like if you look at, again, going back to Blitz, the fact that they bumped up the resolution and increased the frame rate on that game, that doesn't bother me as much as things like removing late hits, or the fact that they took out things from the game. Like I said, it depends on what it is. If you're making the game better, or maybe adding like some quality of life changes to it, that's one thing versus like completely changing the game altogether. So like the Pilot Wings thing actually doesn't bother me. I think it looks fantastic. I think it plays great on Switch. If they had, taken stuff out of the game or fundamentally changed the way the whole game plays, that would have been a very different story.
What about you, Jade? Do you think there's
I think that I think it matter like what matters to me is like who's doing it. So Nintendo's a great example because they're doing something to their own product that they already own and created the license for, basically. And regardless of who they may have contracted or worked with to produce the game originally, the point is that they're still reworking something that's theirs. Now, with that being said, the improvements that we see in Pilot Wings are like 60 FPS and upscaled resolution, but the aspect ratio stays the same and the game mechanics stay the same, and you can use an N64 controller with it. So that to me is great. The one thing I don't like is that they sell, they don't give you the option to buy the games. And that's annoying to me because like I own the original Pilot Wings. I would love to own the remastered version. So that to me is the downside with that scenario. However, we're using Blitz as an example. And I think that the issue with Blitz is that they screwed with the game mechanics. And, it's one thing to say like, oh, well, these were our parameters with it. But they basically kind of rebuilt the game in a way, and it wasn't polished. There's no issues with Pilot Wings. You can just pull it up and start playing it, and it's buttery smooth. But with these other games that people are doing remasters on, if it's Blitz or whatever, you run into these mechanical issues with the game, and that's not okay. It doesn't make it fun, and it takes away from the original experience of playing that game. And so if it's in that spirit, then I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it's important to preserve the gameplay functionality and mechanics of the games that they're doing this with. And at the very end of the day, it's also very subjective to, the gamer themselves. But for me personally, coming from a place where I actually played those games on consoles or played them in the arcades or saw them played, it's annoying to me when they're not reproduced properly and there's issues with them, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. And Zohar says, depends on the game. If GoldenEye
Definitely
64 stays at the same 15 frames per second, it would be awful. If it improves something that was lacking before, then it's fine.
Well, that's a game that I certainly hope that they bump up the frame.
Well, yeah.
It's definitely not Zohar, Stephen.
Oh, definitely
not
Zohar.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's Zohar. Anyways.
Yeah. Here's
but like, I bought the Cowabunga collection. Did any of you guys get that? The Turtles?
I want to get it too. I have not picked it up.
They changed some stuff in there, like in the original and this is trivial, okay? But I noticed it because you remember when the Ninja Turtle movies came out, Pizza Hut was really big on those, right?
Yep.
In the remastered version, they're gone. There's no Pizza Hut signs anywhere, just generic pizza on the walls where it used to be Pizza Hut. And I forgot to check to see if the Arcade 1-Up ROM has it, but I don't think it does. But the original arcade did. Yeah. And also
that's
the Nintendo
licensing thing, though. That's a licensing thing, though.
It is, but it doesn't affect the gameplay, though.
Can't get around that. Yeah, sometimes.
No, but did you see what I'm saying? Like, that's the type of thing that I think is like, it's fine. It's not going to change the gameplay. But guys like us who played it, we remember that, right? We noticed that stuff.
Yeah. Yes,
that was my point.
Well, see, now here's another point I wanted to make that I think is kind of funny, and I hope some people will back me up on this. Nostalgia is a very funny thing, because sometimes you look at these, and again, going back to Pilot Wings, and you look at the way the game looks and plays now, and that's how you kind of want to remember it as having played back in the day when it really didn't look that good.
Right.
But our nostalgia minds tend to remember things as looking way better than they actually
like did. Star Wars 64, where you're flying and you're trying to wrap the cables around the you're like sitting there and you're going
Shadow of the Empire.
Yep. Yeah. And it's going super slow and you're like, oh man, it feels like you're just gliding.
You remember those games as looking so much cooler back in the day, and when you see them for real, you're like, I liked this. But when
your kids go, this is awful.
when they're remastered and they look the way your brain remembers they should have looked, I think that actually does kind of feed into our nostalgia a little bit.
Yeah. I I can go with that. Like Rad Racer used to be one of my favorites, and don't guys be easy on me in the chat room. I know most people hate that game, but I remember getting the 3D glasses with it, and it was the first game on Nintendo that you could play in 3D. You had the blue and red lenses, and you're sitting there and you're playing it.
Oh yeah.
And those glasses got beat up because at the time, you would borrow games with people. You would trade them, and they go play them for a week, and then you'd get another game because it's so much money, right? We always borrow games, so these glasses took a beating, right? And I mean, the reality is, if you try to play that in 3D now, it'll give you a headache. But that game, I play it now, and my son's like, I'd rather play Ridge Racer. He goes, you played this? This is awful. He goes, like, this is not, and it's kind of like the Power Glove, right? I wanted that so bad as a kid, even after the Wizard, right? I wanted that thing, and I got it finally, and it's like, I wanted this cheap, generic piece of garbage, like, and I mean, my kid was playing Punch-Out with it, and we were doing it, so I thought, oh, this is cool. But like you said, Bill, you're 100% right. It's like it's not the way we remembered it. And now I understand why our parents are like, you really don't want that piece of junk. Probably why I didn't end up with the links back when when it came out. But no, seriously though, I mean, just to see if you play the original Super Mario Brothers, even to see where Mario has come in that short period of time. But there's a lot of games. Even Arcade 1-Up has done with Terminator 2. You never used to hold the guns like you do with Big Buck Hunter. They were always just raised up, and the monitor was in the back. And it was mounted, but they were also up higher, right? So you could swivel them, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but the monitor was kind of at an angle. And then you had a mirror, or the mirror was down. But either way, it was recessed in the back of the cabinet.
Yes.
So you had more room, and
yeah,
there's a lot of people that are like, I can't play this game because it's not the way Terminator 2 was originally done. I didn't have nostalgia for it. It plays just fine for me. So I do think it's subjective in that retrospect. And for you, and so this is what I'm getting at too. So Marvel vs. Capcom 2, everybody's been complaining. Blitz, I don't have nostalgia for Blitz. I have it for Dreamcast. I'd rather play Madden all day long if I'm going to play football. I have the brand new NHL, I have the brand new Madden, I have the NBA 2K 23, and then I have Major League Baseball, the show 22. That's how I'm going to play sports. I don't want to play it like NBA Jam. That Jam cabinet sits there. And my brother and I used to play it on Super Nintendo, and even not having all the players, that bothers me. Does that bother anybody else when you're playing a sports game and it doesn't have all the players?
Yeah.
That the original had.
Yeah. Well, you're also talking about the difference between sports simulation games, which are the other ones you mentioned, versus sports arcade games, which are supposed to be tongue-in-cheek and over the top.
Yeah, I just never got into this.
Which goes back to that whole thing about the late hits. I know some people don't care, and I'm not a big one for Blitz. It doesn't hold nostalgia for me. But no, and I agree with that 100%. They weren't going to let that cabinet come out with the late hits. I totally understand. It's a licensing thing. It's they weren't going to let, but it was such a part of that game, and it made it different from, say, a Madden. Madden, you play Madden because you love football and it's a sports simulation. Yeah. You play Blitz because you want to beat the crap out of your friends.
Oh no, I agree. It's just like WrestleMania, the arcade game. Okay, I hated that game. I really did. It was like Mortal Kombat.
That's like one of the ones that I love.
But it's like it's that in your house. It's like playing Mortal Kombat with professional wrestlers, and that used to drive me nuts. Like if I'm going to play a wrestling game, it's going to be a system. I get it. It's like Killer Instinct. You like those types of games, but there was a group of wrestling fans that love those games. I hated them. I really did. I did not get into them, and they were just like Blitz and your NBA Jam. So, but I will say, playing the original arcade and then coming home and playing like a console version, huge difference. I can understand, Jade, why you liked playing it in the arcade when you got that rumbling bass, and it's it like it immerses you more than the console did. And I'm sure playing NBA Jam in the arcade, and I don't remember because it was so long. I mean, you're talking 20 years ago. I don't remember what that experience is like. I'd almost have to go to Galloping Ghosts, play these games again, and go, yeah, this is how I remember it. Because the older I get, I feel like I lose a lot of that until I sit down and play it. Like, I remember, I even sit down on the floor until my back hurts. Do the Indian style cross playing Contra, because that's how I remember my brother and I playing it and doing the up, down, down. To me, that's the stuff. Like when my brother comes out, he'll be out here in 2 weeks. There's a lot of games that we're going to go back and we're going to play. That's why I bought the Rampage cabinet. Because I remember him and we'd go to Showbiz Pizza, and we would play that game nonstop. And then he got the Nintendo version, and we would play that nonstop. Yeah. And for me, that's a piece of my childhood. Like, I'll never get rid of that Rampage cabinet. Like that. There's so much nostalgia with that cabinet compared to any other cabinet.
That's one of the games I tend to gravitate to on the Defender Party. Okay, I love same thing.
Yeah.
That was one. It was at when I was younger. A bunch of my friends and I, we joined a bowling league one year, and Rampage was one of the arcade machines at the bowling alley, and we used to play that like crazy. I love that game.
Now, Jade, we were talking about how I probably couldn't get a full-size arcade down here because it's down in the basement. I'll tell you one game that I would try my darndest to get it down here, especially if I could get it for like $800, would be WWF WrestleFest. That is another game that holds heavy nostalgia for me. Every week, my parents.
That's like the wrestling fans, like king of the arcade wrestling game, isn't it?
I played it every week when my parents were at bowling league, and we had. I remember it was the WWF Wrestling Challenge just came out on Nintendo, and that was when the wrestling ring was like a diamond, and you ran around the little people. That was right after the original, the original one with Hulk Hogan, and Andre the Giant. They were really big, and you would just punch. I mean, it looked like the Rock'em Sock'em boxing thing. And when we played that, we were like, I don't want to play that on Nintendo anymore. I want to play this. I mean, we were like, they look real. This is awesome. Like, and they had all the wrestlers that we didn't have.
Yeah, that was another thing about that era too, was that like games that came to consoles, just there was always something missing. Okay,
Yep.
Street Fighter 2, it was like the water dripping over the edge of the bathtub and E-Honda stage. That used to piss me off. And then the sprites were smaller, so the characters were smaller. And then like NBA Jam, Bonafide Picker said NBA Jam was better in the arcade, in my opinion. And I didn't even really play it that much, but I just remember seeing it on Super Nintendo and being like, why don't they have big heads? Like, this looks dumb compared to the arcade. I'm like, that's like one of the main things about NBA Jam is big heads, and you couldn't even do it.
And Bonafide Picker's right with this too. Rampage is just dumb, but it brings fun and joy to all ages.
Oh yeah,
I 100%
true.
Looking at it now, Bonafide Picker, you're 1,000% right. It is a stupid game.
Oh yeah.
But for me to sit there and play with my kids after and tell them how the stories when I played with my brother and growing up, and that was the first game he played when he came here.
There's just something about when you die in that game and your character shrinks and they're covering their little privates and going off the screen. It just cracks me up every freaking time.
But it's one of those things where I was able to. It's like a second generation thing where like I got to experience it as a kid, bring it into my home. And now my kids get to experience it with me. And hopefully one day my grandkids will get to experience it with me. To me, there's no amount of... You can't put a price on that. There's no amount of change that they could do to that. I mean, now, if they did beef up the cabinet and gave you some different games and made it more look like the Midway cabinet, like the Mortal Kombat, I'd probably get rid of it and get the new one. That's one cabinet I probably would upgrade. Because obviously it would have the new PCB. But I'm telling you, like, there's something to that. Tecmo Super Bowl, Bono's Tecmo, he's in here. That was another football game that was one of our favorites.
Oh, yeah.
And I would be disappointed if it wasn't like it was back then. So, I don't know, guys.
I think that a lot of the arcade machines that matter to us are the ones that they weren't port perfect on console, if that makes sense.
No, they were cheesy.
Like Yeah, if you look at all the ones that were really like, oh, this is so great, it's the ones that just weren't ported perfectly to console. When you
Yeah.
start getting into the Dreamcast era, um, I think the big benefit of MVC2 for a lot of people in the Versus games were that was like the border between, arcade perfect ports and then online playability. You throw that in there, and that kind of makes it more appealing. But outside of that, I'm just thinking, I mean, Sega Saturn was the best console that you could play any of those Versus games on prior to that, but
Yep.
only if you had the Japanese versions and the expansion cart. So it wasn't until that era where you kind of started that line between console and arcade started to fade. And so everything before that is, I think, what also makes it especially nostalgic for people like us.
Well, and that's why people ask me with my At Games Legends, like, why did you put Marble Madness on it? It's like the artwork is just obnoxious because it was that neon orange and yellow from the original Atari. But I'm like, again, Marble Madness is, for me, is very nostalgic. One of my best friends growing up, who's not with us anymore, he passed away at such an early age, and there's a lot of nostalgia with that. Him and I, we'd spend the weekends together. That's what we played, and we would, when it first came out for Nintendo, it was like, this was so. For me, there's nostalgia to that. So I think everybody has their own, everybody has their own list. But to put a little smile on everybody's face, so this is, somebody said something earlier that I had a cold or something. This is why you can blame everything on this.
Oh boy,
this is what I woke up to the other day. A lot of that white stuff, and our leaves. If you look, the leaves are still not off the trees yet. This is my Ring camera out the front of my house, and so yeah, it was very pleasant to wake up to. I love snow, just not that early. So, again, it was it was one of those things I figured I'd share with you guys.
Yeah, and Jay, just so you know, yes, that white stuff, that's snow.
Yeah.
I know you don't know what that is in California.
Yeah.
That's called snow.
Because you guys are, what, 90s right now?
Actually, no, we've been in the mid 80s to low 70s, depending on the day. But you know what? Actually, 2 years ago, we had snow down here, but we get snow in the mountains every year. But yeah, I mean, for us, it's definitely not a seasonal thing down here in the lower part of Cal.
Yeah, it's 39 degrees outside. And in the studio here, it is 78 degrees with all the equipment that's running for the broadcast. So it's nice, and like all the heat rises. I even shut the vents down here because it gets super warm down here. So everybody's like,
I have a little space heater.
Oh no!
Over here because it gets really cold in my little.
My cats, they come down.
I would rather
office that I have.
I would rather be freezing and like bundled up in something cozy than be like sweating hot. But if I had to survive in something, I would rather be sweating hot.
Once I shut the machines down,
the cold is painful.
Once I shut the machines down, everything will cool down. No thanks. I'd rather not have. He probably meant I'd rather not have the snow. But I'm curious, you guys in the chat room, since we were talking about nostalgia and these arcade games, or even games in general, and like Bill said that if they make changes to it, why don't you guys put in the chat room a game that if they changed it, even the frame rate, if they changed the speed of the game, if they changed even the color palette just slightly because of it going HD, would ruin the game for you? I don't care how you feel, how stupid that game is. Like I said, with Rampage, it's not everybody's favorite game. Put it in the chat room. I'm interested in hearing what you think that you would feel if they changed something in the game. It would ruin it for you, even if it didn't necessarily affect the gameplay. Because I feel like there's a lot of games like that.
I think the interesting thing too, like that I think about is, like, does the game, like, what's the point? Like, why does the game need to be updated or whatever? Like, is it like really just a marketing tactic, or is it like, does it actually make the game better? I mean, like, Pilot Wings at an upscaled resolution, even at like a locked 30 FPS, would be just a simple, nice upgrade that would actually make it actually makes the game a little bit nicer to play, coming from the N64 version. But then there's like games where it's like, the gameplay mechanics are never going to change no matter what you do. So
Yeah, and let's see here. We have Bono's Tecmo says, I think Crazy Taxi without Offspring. Biggie D's
yeah.
Arcade. Can you elaborate what game you're speaking of when he says if they change the characters?
I think he's speaking in general.
In general, no,
Yeah,
that is a generalized statement. But some people, let's put it this way, okay. And this isn't to get into a huge debate, but they talked about Scooby-Doo changing the characters, changing the ethnicity of the characters, as well as changing Shaggy's name to Orville, which is his real name anyways. But that's not Scooby-Doo. You can't do that. Like, that character has been synonymous for what, the last 60 years, 70 years. You don't change that. If you want to do a spin-off, that's one thing. But it's like when they did the Ghostbusters with all the girls, right? Like, that's not the Ghostbusters. If you want to do a spin-off.
But it was supposed to be like an alternate reality. Did you know that? It's supposed to be like an alternate
Well, it definitely
universe.
was an alternate reality, but it was just hard to get into because
I actually liked that. I feel guilty saying it, but I actually liked that movie.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm a huge fan of the original Ghostbusters too, by the way. And the fact that they had a statue of Egon in it was even like made me happy.
Well, the new movie was really good too. If you didn't see it, you need to watch it.
Yeah, the new movie was great. I actually really enjoyed that.
All right, so Biggie D says, okay, Sonic, Mario, sometimes, either that or he's saying sometimes Mario, or maybe saying Sonic, Mario, sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't. Well, they had that problem also with the movie, right? They didn't like, people didn't like the way Sonic looked. Bonafide Picker, let's see what he says here. He says, to me, Galaga is perfect as his music sounds everything. To me, it is a sound you should hear in every arcade. Yeah, I go with that. Mike Hawk?
Okay, so talking about arcade games and sound.
Yeah.
If Arcade 1-Up ever came out with a Konami Legacy cab, one of the games I would love to see on there is Gyrus. But if they can't get that music right, forget it. Gyrus to me is all about that music.
Agreed.
I think there's key elements that definitely, especially if it's a remaster, there's key elements that definitely have to be in there for, especially if there's a huge fan base for a game. But I mean, like, there are games too that you could arguably say, like, there's that console era where it's really difficult to get games that are emulated correctly, or they're just really expensive. So I mean, and RE4 kind of falls into that category of one of those games where, being able to play all of these older games remastered and streamlined onto a newer console is a nice, it's a nice convenience to have that and to be able to do that. But at the same token, like, then there's the downside of like the Nintendo way of doing that, which is where you can't freaking buy it. Like, I want to own it. I don't want Game Pass. I'm old school like that.
You want the physical.
Well, that again, and that's a whole nother thing too. I like Resident Evil 4. I mean, that's been redone, remade, remastered. Every time a new console comes out, you're going to get a version of Resident Evil 4, it feels like. But I think they go a little too far with this. Like, okay, do we really need a remaster of The Last of Us on PS5?
Yes. That is like one of the best games in the world.
Yeah, but it's great the way it is.
But if you can make it more crisp and more it makes it so much better, which leads us into one of our last stories that we have that we got to talk about, because I'm very excited for this, because Bill, you brought it out, and that is after years of nothing, not hearing anything, Silent Hill Konomi just comes out. Konami says, we're bringing it to you. We're remastering it. Bill, you were just talking about these guys remastering every time a new system comes out.
Yep. Well,
Jade, tell me you're excited about this.
I mean...
Jade, tell me you're excited about this.
Oh my
Jade.
god, you guys! Silent Hill remaster, Steven, I'm so excited.
She's not excited about this, folks. Really? I mean, look at this. Like, did you play Silent Hill? Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. It's just, and it's really just
It looks real.
it's such a weird and difficult subject to talk about. I mean, and Bill's making a lot of good points. Like, I think this is really cool, in a lot of different ways because it brings the game back to life. But then again, like the environment that you played in on the original Silent Hill will it's very difficult to recreate that feeling. And like Resident Evil is a great example of it for me when you're talking about survival horror games.
Yep.
Because when they came out with the new Resident Evils, and they're not remasters, but when they came out with the new ones, I was like, oh man, I don't know if I can play this in first person. But somehow they pulled off the feeling that you get when you play a Resident Evil game, and they did it really good. And so that's the thing, like I don't really think they should be remastering all these games over and over again. I think they should be reinventing them.
No, I would agree with that. But some of the other games that they missed the boat on, like I think they should remaster them. Like, did you play Resident Evil in VR on the PS4? Even though the PS4 VR is not as good as the Oculus, like I have it for Oculus too. Because Bonafide Picker's like, how much money have you spent on this game? You have no idea, bro. Yeah. So I'll tell you what, I don't get scared at horror flicks. I don't get scared of anything like jump scare stuff. I was literally sweating playing VR Resident Evil. There's something about them creating this atmosphere where you feel like you're there, and you open a door and that person is standing inches from you. You get scared. You start sweating profusely. Like you feel like you're in the game.
I don't think I could do it.
I could play the game without VR straight through. It has a few jump scare parts. Play it in VR, and you won't even get past the first level without like, okay, I got to take this off because I'm gonna wet myself.
Well,
I'm not kidding you.
I think that's also like for me, I can get that, and I have VR, so I played that on VR. But for me, it's more of like a feeling of isolation. So I usually play those games at nighttime, all the lights turned off, and it's just me and the console and the game. You know what I mean? So I kind of get that same effect. But I agree that like it's more immersive when you're like that, but I can get that immersive feeling from kind of doing that whole thing.
I just think that, when you go into some of these that like you brought up The Last of Us redoing it. Have you ever played The Last of Us?
I love that game.
Okay, I have both of them.
Last of Us and Last of Us 2. I think they're both fantastic games.
I've beaten both of them.
I'm not a big horror game person. Like even the Silent Hill, I played a little bit of the first one, but I couldn't.
Have you played The Quarry?
Not yet.
Oh, I haven't.
I've heard that.
Get The Quarry, and it's not
I played Until Dawn. Until Dawn.
Okay, but The Quarry's not a game where you have to be like Resident Evil, where you like The Quarry goes in and it'll stop, and it a lot of it's like a movie, and it stops, and it'll say
Until Dawn. It's the same people who made Until Dawn.
Right. It'll say, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And then it updates.
Choose your own adventure.
Yes, 139 different endings for this game.
Wow.
The guys from Complete Geek TV, if you guys are interested, a few months ago they played The Quarry in a quarry in the dark. They have it on YouTube. They did the video. I mean, it was freaky. My wife, myself, and a friend of ours that was in the arcade. The three of us it took us about 9.5 to 10 hours to beat it. So we did it over 3 Saturdays. We sat and we played it like at 1 o'clock in the morning. And it's got a little edge of your seat stuff, but it's not super scary. But I like those types of games, the jump scares, and
well, I'll tell you exactly why I don't play these games in VR. Okay, because I have the Oculus Quest 2. I have the PlayStation VR. I was playing the PlayStation VR when I first got it. It came with a demo disc.
Right.
Of a bunch of different games. And one of them is like a space game.
Astrobot. It's the best game.
No,
Astrobot is awesome.
I'm talking about like horror type. Like,
Oh, I don't know if I played that.
There's a space game or whatever where you're running around shooting at things, and there's all these little like bug creatures that come out at you, and you shoot them. And I'm playing this game, and these bug creatures are coming at me. And at the exact same time, my freaking cat decides to rub against my leg. And I thought, I felt like one of those stupid bugs was running against me. I freaked out and threw the helmet off. That's why I don't play horror games in VR. Because I own a cat.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Ugh.
That's
So-
that's one of the funny elements about.
My wife still laughs at me at that one.
That's one of the funny elements about VR, though, is like you get so into it at some points that you literally forget like what's outside. Like I've literally gone to scratch my face in VR and been like tonk and hit the. I'm not even joking. Like you forget what's outside of you, and so little surprises like that can definitely.
I have the Titanic for PlayStation VR, but right now I'm working on I've just finished this game for PS5. If you want another jump scare one, it's called Martha is Dead. It's twisted in the sense of you get all the way through the game. Like I've beaten it already. You get all the way through the game, and you're like, really? Like this is more like a creepy one in the sense of like you're in a room for a little bit. You have to do some investigation. There's a corpse laying there, and like they're having the funeral there. This is probably a 7 out of 10. I would give it. I don't think it's like it was the reason I didn't give it higher was because I beat it so quick. The other one I'm working on right now.
The same rating as Arcade 1-Up's Marvel.
Yeah. So this is the one I'm working on right now. Alan Wake.
I have that.
This is a great game, and I'm in the process. I'm working on this. If you guys are interested, if you have I think this is PlayStation 5 only, right? With Alan Wake, or can you get it on Xbox?
That I'm not
I forget.
By the way,
No, it's on Xbox.
The Silent Hill remaster. The Silent Hill remaster is PS5 exclusive.
Yeah, it's PS5 exclusive. Finally, we're getting PS5 exclusives. Alan Wake, freaking awesome, playing on the 360. Okay, so right, so it originally came out on the 360.
The original,
yes. They have a remastered version on Xbox One.
Yes. Okay, good. So you guys can get the remastered the same one. The remaster's really nice. And so I have the original on the Xbox 360. But if you're into like shadow creatures and things like that, Alan Wake is a good game. So I play this usually. The reason I haven't finished it is my wife and her friend, they like to sit and watch while I play it, and we all kind of work together to play it. And I kind of move the controller, and then we all jump at one time. But it's one of those games that's a lot of fun to play in that. And Resident Evil, I have the latest Resident Evil, and I haven't gotten through that. I just can't get into the whole werewolf thing. I'm just not a werewolf person. So
it's really good.
Yeah, I just have to spend some time with it. Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, I beat it so good.
I just have to spend time with it. So there's a bunch of games that I have to go through. But Alan Wake, you can probably get it on clearance even right now for like $20. I didn't pay a lot for it, and I bought it new. But Martha is Dead. If you want something that's gonna make you think, that there's different puzzles in there where you have to use like Morse code, and you have to find a clue that'll help you with the Morse code throughout the game. It's going to make you think. There's a lot of like you're investigative. It's really good. So check that out, guys. We're gonna have to wrap this up. We're at the end of the night here. These guys got to go to bed. They got to get up for work in the morning. So Mr. Bill, Bill, YouTube.com/Bill's Retro Gaming Show. Do you got any videos coming out this week that people should be aware of?
Yeah, look for something on Marvel vs. Capcom 2 at some point once I put it together, and maybe a few little surprises here and there. We'll see.
And Bill is also going to do a giveaway for his shirt that he got for the Super Mario Brothers movie. So
no, it's not. No, not giving away the shirt. Nice try.
Make sure you guys check him out. Bill wants to get to 1,000 as well. 1,000 subscribers. We did it with everybody else. Everybody else got to 1,000. I think Endless got to 1,000 this week.
Yes, he did. Congrats.
He will be. He's on a business trip this week, so he wasn't able to get to a video what's on deck. So now he owes us 2 for next week. I'm just kidding. But also Jade, you guys can check her out, youtube.com/SheLionGaming. And do you have any videos coming out this week?
I am not planning on anything. I do
Slacker.
have the drawing for my giveaway, which should be coming up in the next few days. So if you have not entered for an opportunity to win a free copy of Pokken Tournament DX for the Nintendo Switch, go over to my community post, scroll down, and check it out. Very easy, and the rules are there. That's about it. I probably will be releasing random things because I will be doing arcade projects for the next couple weeks.
I was just going to say, you mean to tell me you're not going to have any videos of them bringing the cabinet into your house and the first turn on in your house and maybe your first playing of the game? Come on, you got to do that. You got to put some shorts or something out there.
Yeah, make the
Maybe.
rest of
We'll
us
see.
jealous.
Okay, so she's going to, make everybody else. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed to her so you can watch that kind of stuff. I've been slacking. I've got a bunch of products here that I have to review. There's more products coming, so I need to jump on this. I just been so busy, and then every time I try to get ahead, something else breaks, and I have to fix that. So, not making excuses, but this is pretty much my YouTube content. I gotta get some more down and do it. But be appreciative if you guys could hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. We really appreciate it. Hopefully, Glenn will be back next week, unless Big Bird confiscates him and takes him away and. Anything's possible with Glenn, so we'll see.
I heard he's shooting a movie next week, so we may not see him.
Oh, we might not see him? Okay, well, it's like him to just ditch us like that, so. But we'll see you guys next week for more of Game Time, same game time, and same game channel. I worked on that, too.